Hi there, this video is going to cover conversion and rounding calculations. First off, little conversion review. A copy of this is located on my success shell under conversions. These are the conversions that you should memorize and always be aware of. You will be asked to convert these any point, not only in our nursing program, but also throughout your nursing career. So please make sure that you are familiar with these conversions. We'll start off with calculating clients' intake here. So these are also conversions. So as I always mention for MAPE practice, you want to read the end of the question first. And in this case, we're looking for intake in milliliters. So we want to convert all of these into milliliters. And what do we know? We know that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters, right? So if we look at this apple juice, we can go ahead and convert that because we know we have 9 ounces of apple juice. What we don't know is how many milliliters that 9 ounces would be. So we go ahead and cross multiply to solve, and we get 1x equals 30 times 9. So that's going to equal 270 milliliters. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this right here to 270 milliliters. My pen isn't giving me good here. And then 270 milliliters. This chicken broth is already in milliliters, so I'm going to write 200 milliliters. Then I've got 3 ounces of Jell-O, and you can write out the ratio proportion for each of these individually, or you can just know we multiply 3 times 30, and that's going to be 90 milliliters. It's just a quicker way to do that. But again, you're welcome to set it up like this as well. And then we have 16 ounces of hot tea. And if I take 16 times 30 milliliters per ounce, I'm going to get 480 milliliters. And then my water is already in milliliters, so I don't have to convert that. I'm going to do 750 milliliters. So now I'm going to take my calculator and do 750 plus 480 plus 90 plus 200 plus 270, and that's going to equal 1790 milliliters. You want to make sure you write in this line here, and you want to make sure that you label it appropriately. 1790 milliliters. Okay, moving on to the next one. We have another intake to calculate, and this is asking milliliters would you record for intake. So again, I want to put all of these in milliliters. This one is written in cups. And what do I know? I know that 1 cup is 8 ounces, right? 1 cup is 8 ounces. So if I want to know what 0.5 cups, I can multiply that out, cross multiply, and I find out that half a cup is going to be 4 ounces. And I know from my previous calculation that 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So if I multiply 4 by 30, I get 120 milliliters for this coffee. And then again, for my 12 ounces of ginger ale, I'm going to take 12 and multiply that by 30, and I'll get 360 milliliters for that one. Cranberry juice is already in milliliters, so I don't need to convert that. And then I have 4 cups of water. So again, there's 8 ounces per cup. 8 times 4 is 32 ounces total. If I have 32 ounces of water, multiply it by 30 milliliters per ounce, that's going to be 960 mils of water. So now I'm going to take 960 plus 120 plus 360 plus 120, and that's going to equal 1560 milliliters. Again, make sure you write your final answer in that line so the instructor knows that is your final answer. Moving right along, rounding. You're going to find this on page 1 of our MAPE exams. These are the rules that you follow whenever you're rounding numbers. So we round down if it's between 0.1 and 0.4. We keep the number as is. So we call that rounding down, but you don't actually change the number. You just keep it what it is. And then if you go up, so you're going to add 1 if it's 0.5 to 0.9, and we'll go over those a little bit more as we go through our calculations. And then, of course, your final answers are typically rounded to the nearest tenth unless otherwise indicated. Most of our medications are given to the tenth. Keep in mind that if you're giving a tablet, we can't give 0.7 of a tablet. We can give halves, maybe quarters. I don't really see that often, but it's typically a full tablet or a half of a tablet. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Is this a reasonable number for me to measure my medication? Imagine yourself in the medication room. Can I actually do this? Okay, so we're going to keep going on here. And here we have, we're going to read the end of the question first. Tabs per dose. End of the question first, and then I have to ask myself, what do I need? What information do I need to know how many tabs per dose? Well, I need to know how much my doctor wants to give, and then I also need to know my drug label. I need to know the concentration of my drug label. And right away I'm noticing that my doctor's order is in grams and my drug is in milligrams. And I recommend trying to get numbers to no decimals if possible, because decimals have a high degree of error. So I am going to look at my 0.09 grams and convert that to milligrams. And what do I know? I know that 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. So I can set this up as a ratio proportion as 0.09 grams is to X milligrams, okay? And I can cross multiply that out. The same thing I can also do, and I like to do this because it's a little bit faster, but you can choose which method works for you, is if I write down 0.09 and I multiply it by 1,000, because that's the math we're going to do here in the ratio proportion, I go 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So I know that this is 90 milligrams. That is my doctor's order, 90 milligrams. And then this calculation, because it's asking tabs per dose, I know I'm going to be using my D over H times V formula. And in this case, my D is 90 milligrams, right? And what do I have? I have 60 milligrams times 1 tablet. So I'm going to march that out. I'm going to do 90, divide that by 60, and multiply that by 1. And I always recommend putting this 1 in there, even though we know multiplying a number by 1 ends up being its own number. But if you don't get in the habit of that, when it's not 1, you might forget that step. So in this case, I get 1.5 tabs. So it's really important to make sure you label that and write it right on your line there. Okay, moving on. Again, I'm going to read the end of the question first. Mils per dose. What do I need to know? I need to know my doctor's order, and I also need to know the concentration of my label. This again is going to be a D over H times V. And I want to point out, you can also set this up as a ratio proportion. D over H times V is a shortcut to the ratio proportion. It is one formula that I do recommend you know, just because it's really fast and easy. And if you know anything about nursing, you know that we have to be very efficient with our time. So I do recommend you learn this one formula, but you're also welcome to set up a ratio and proportion to solve any of these calculations. Okay, so in order to solve this, I need to take a look at my doctor's order, and I'm noticing it's written in grams and my medication is written in milligrams. So again, I'm going to try to get rid of decimal points just to minimize my degree of error. And I'm going to write 0.7, and I know I have to multiply that by 1,000 to put it in milligrams. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 decimal places, because I'm multiplying by 1,000. There's 3 zeros there. So I know that 0.7 grams equals 700 milligrams. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug these values into my formula. So I know that my D, my doctor's order, is 700 milligrams. And what do I have? I'm going to look over here. I have 375 milligrams times 5 milliliters. I'm going to go ahead and erase this to make sure it's clear. Times 5 milliliters. And I'm going to do that math. 700 divided by 375 times 5. And that number is going to equal 9.333 repeating. So I have to round that number to the nearest tenth because that's what we give in the hospital. So when I round to the nearest tenth, that's going to be this number. I don't care about this number. I want to look at this one here to find out how I round. And because 3 is less than 4, I'm going to keep this number 9.3 milliliters. Okay? If my answer, and it's not, if my answer, let's say it was 9.36. If my answer was that, then my answer would have been 9.4 milliliters. Okay? That's the rules for rounding here. But in this case, my correct answer is 9.3 milliliters. Okay? So let's keep scrolling along. Again, we're going to read the end of the question first. Tabs per dose. I need my doctor's order and I need my drug label concentration. And again, grams, milligrams. I know I'm going to need to convert just to start. 0.25 times 1,000 is 1, 2, 3 decimal places. That's going to equal 250 milligrams. And I know I'm going to be using my D over H times V formula here. So my D here, my doctor's order, we just calculated, is 250 milligrams. What do I have? Let's see, I have 500 milligrams, and I have to look a little bit more because I don't really see it quickly. And then I read in my label, each tablet contains 500 milligrams of Amox. Okay, each tablet, so I know it's one tablet. So sometimes you have to read a little just to make sure, times 1 tab. So that's my calculation. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to go 250 divided by 500, and that equals 0.5 what? Tabs. Tabs. That is my final answer. Okay, scooting along a little more. I'm going to go ahead and read the end of my question first, and I see how many mils per dose. Again, I'm going to need my doctor's order and my label. And I'm going to notice here that, let's see, this is in milligrams, this is in milligrams. I don't have to convert. That's quite nice. This is going to be a D over H times V problem. So my doctor's order is 1.25 milligrams. What do I have? I have 2 milligrams times 1 milliliter. So I'm going to go to my calculator, 1.25 divided by 2 equals 0.625. Okay, that is not a reasonable amount of medication for me to give. I'm going to have to round. So remember, when we're rounding to the 10th, we look at the number right past the 10th. So this one isn't going to matter. Okay, I'm going to look at the 2. And because the 2 is 4 or less, I know I'm going to keep my number as is and not go up. So my final answer is 0.6 milliliters. Okay, make sure you label, make sure you write it on the line provided so your instructor knows that's your final answer. Okay. What is this question asking me? Capsules per dose. Again, I need to know what does my doctor want, and I need to know the concentration of my label. And again, I'm noticing milligrams, grams. I gotta convert because I can't put milligrams and grams in the same formula together. So I take 0.5 grams and I multiply it by 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I know it equals 500 milligrams. And I'm going to use my D over H times V formula. So what is my D? My doctor's order is 500 milligrams. Now I have to find out my concentration. What do I have? I have, let's see, I have 250 milligrams times 1 capsule. I'm going to do that math. 500 divided by 250 equals 2. So I'm going to write it on my line, 2 caps, right there. Okay. Moving right along. How many milligrams per dose? Oh, milligrams per dose. Okay, so right now I'm thinking, what do I need to know? I don't care about my drug label. Milligrams per dose is my doctor's order. So don't get distracted by anything else. So that's why you say, what do I need to know to answer this question? I'm going to look right here, right in my doctor's order. This is how many milligrams per dose, but it's in grams right now. So this question is asking me to convert grams to milligrams. And I have 0.5 grams, and I know to multiply that by 1,000, I go 1, 2, 3 decimal points, which is 500 milligrams. So how many milligrams will you give per dose? 500 milligrams is my final answer. Okay. Here's another one, tablets per dose. What do I need to know for tablets per dose? I need to know how much the doctor wants, and I need to know the concentration of my label. This is going to be another D over H times V calculation. And then I'm going to notice right here, my doctor's orders in milligrams, my label is in grams. It's different this time though, because now my doctor's orders in milligrams. I'm going to convert my label into milligrams. And I know that 1,000 milligrams equals 1 gram. So this equals 1,000 milligrams. So my D in this case, my doctor's order is 500 milligrams. And what do I have? I have 1,000 milligrams in 1 tablet. And I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do 500 divided by 1,000, and I get 0.5. Okay, the X is the one I'm solving for. I get 0.5 tabs. Make sure you write it in the line and you label your final answer. Okay, moving right along. Milligrams per day. Okay, what do I need to know that? In order to do that, I need to know how many milligrams per dose. And I also need to know how many doses per day. 2 parts to answer that question. So how many milligrams per dose? Oh boy, I'm going to have to do some calculation here. So this is a typical problem where I have multiple steps to keep track of. Multiple steps I need to get track of. And another nice thing that you might be able to do here is write milligrams per day right here on my final answer line. So I know that's what I'm looking for, because I can get lost in this problem. Because right now I'm going to look at my doctor's order of 0.25 grams. And I'm going to convert that to milligrams to start. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 decimal points. And I know that's 250 milligrams per dose. So when I go down here and I think, oh wait, that's not per dose, that's per day, is a really nice reminder. So now I figured out how many milligrams per dose. I need to know how many doses per day. And if I'm getting a medication every 8 hours, that would be 3 times per day, because we have 24 hours in a day. We divide 24 by 8 and we get 3. So the next thing I need to do is I need to do 250 milligrams per dose times 3 doses per day. And I go to my calculator, 250, times 3 equals 750. And I know that my answer is 750 milligrams per day. Okay, and again, this is why it's so important to start with, what is my question asking me? Okay, so you don't want to start calculating how many tablets per dose. You will waste time on this test. You want to say, what is this question asking me? And in this case, milligrams per day. Okay, last one for this video. Last one for this video, right? Yes, last one. Okay, tablets per dose. Let me scroll up a little bit more. Tablets per dose. What do I need to answer this question? I need my doctor's order. I need my label concentration. This is going to be a D over H times V calculation. And again, I'm noticing, I've got milligrams, I've got micrograms. And what do I know? I know that 1 milligram equals 1,000 micrograms. Okay, so I like to try to get my calculations away from these decimals. So I'm going to put milligrams into micrograms for my doctor's order. So I have 0.075 and I'm going to multiply that by 1,000. So I go 1, 2, 3 decimal points. I know that that equals 75 micrograms. That's my doctor's order. Okay, so my D is 75 micrograms. My pen is giving out. And what do I have? I have 25 micrograms times 1 tablet. Go over to my calculator and I'm going to do 75 divided by 25 equals 3. 3 what? 3 tabs. My final answer. Okay, and that is it for our conversions and rounding video. Again, if you have questions or difficulty, please send me a message. I'm happy to meet with you and do math together. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.